It's time for our Allied Cooperative program on this Wednesday morning. I've got Jason Burden. He is livestock production specialist working out of the Auburndale office. Now we're talking about harvesting, and we've talked a lot about harvesting corn for grain, but that corn for silage harvest is pretty much wrapping up. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, Jill, as we sit here in the third week of October, most of those choppers have been parked, even talking to a few custom operators. They've completed, wrapped up harvest, even for some of the guys doing a few of the last of the silos. Harvest is wrapping up, but the weird thing is we've got quite a big trade territory, just as like your WAXX listenership. I mean, you got people listening all over the western half of the state, and as we do as customers as well, Jill. But one of the things we're finding out is we're seeing some, location by location variances in these new corn silages or sampleages that we are seeing. A lot of our producers have been very blessed the last few years. We've had some above adequate moisture, and we've had awesome yields. But so we've got some good inventory. But even on some of those farms where we've got, say, 3 or 4 months worth of inventory carryover yet, we've been forced into feeding some of that new corn silage or new samplage. And we're seeing quite a few different little things, Jill, that has been throwing our cows for just a little bit of a loop.
And what are some of those things that you see from the new corn silage to the more aged corn silage?
So one of the things that we're seeing already this year, Jill, is our ADF and NDFs are typically just a smidge higher than what we have seen the last 2 years, looking at a graph comparing the last 3 years of harvest. And then also with that ADF, NDF being higher, what it's saying is our starch levels might be a little bit lower. As we go into that fiber, though, as we stay in that piece, our fiber digestibility that we talk about, that NDFD 30 hour that has become common lingo in the countryside, we've kind of looked at that number, and it's feeding a little bit slower than we would like. Did a few advanced diagnostics on some farms last week, and the cows are agreeing with these early numbers coming off the paperwork. As we start feeding more and more of this stuff, we use some of those old tricks that we used to do years gone by on, okay, how do we get this fiber to break down faster? How do we get this starch to mobilize a little bit faster? But walking into that starch piece and looking at where our starch numbers are, I'll look at a bell curve on that, and it'll show us kind of, hey, this is how the breakdown is across, this trade territory. Well, this year that bell curve is a little bit more flatter, and we're seeing the starch numbers a little bit lower all the way up to still even very high. But what that saying is, where did that moisture fall? July, August, when that cob was getting set up, as that plant was developing based off of when it was planted.
When you're talking a lot of numbers and variances, is there anything that a farmer can do as he feeds that corn silage to make it even out and more palatable for the cows?
So we've typically, we talk starch digestibility numbers, the old days of, hey, we always got a bump of milk around Christmas time. Well, now we actually have a quantitative number to put on that bump of milk and why it came. Sample, field-to-field variation has been really high. Across many different farms when it was planted has been very variant. So with that, we just continue to watch that. So there's fields or there's times of the season where, hey, we're going to have to feed a little bit extra grain. So we'll bump that starch up there. We'll bump up that high moisture corn, or if a producer has whey permeate available, we'll use a little bit more of that. The other thing is when it comes to that fiber digestion piece, we'll also, address how we're tackling that or how we're handling that. Maybe we've got to feed a little bit better haylage during these first few months. Might have to come back to something a little bit coarser later on. Or do we got to feed some soy hulls or some cottonseed hulls? How can we get that fiber to break down faster inside that rumen with those cows?
And are you available for that advice and going out and doing that sampling?
Yep, any of the consultants through Allied Co-op are very knowledgeable in all of these, bits of information. We've got, people that are based out of that Hickston Western region, West Salem, all the way back through central Wisconsin. So, yeah, we're there to help us, help you guys. So if any of those questions should come up, just feel free to give a call at any time.
Always good to have that support when feeding corn silage, whether it's the new, the old. Keep those cows milking. And that's our Allied program for this Wednesday morning with Jason Burden. He is the livestock production specialist out of Auburndale. And I'm Jill Welke from WAXX 104.5.